And now, Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today on Deborah Kobylt Live. And won't you welcome my friend, Lisa Goich, author, podcast host, and a whole lot more. Thanks a lot for being here, Lisa.
Hi, Deborah. It's so nice to be here with you.
Gosh, where do I even begin with somebody like you? You know what I love? You did comedy for nearly like 2 decades. That tells me everything. Comics are smart people. They're great writers. They're very intuitive. They look and they see what's going on in the world, and then boom, out it comes on the stage. How did you start doing comedy?
I was an advertising copywriter out of college.
Hmm.
I was a journalism major in college, and then I was a copywriter for many years. And I worked for an agency that specialized in humorous advertising.
Ah,
And I really loved writing humor, and I just gravitated toward it. And a friend of mine said, you should try to write stand up to see they thought I would be a good stand up comic. So I said, you know what? That might be fun to try once. Right. So I went and wrote myself a little 10-minute act and went to an open mic night in Detroit at it's called the Comedy Castle. It's a really popular comedy club. And I went to the Comedy Castle and did my 10 minutes, and it was a huge success the first
wow.
time. The first time. Then the second time that I went up the following week, all cocky, thinking, oh, this is great. Well, the first time, by the way, it was filled with like all my friends and family because I said I would never do it again. And I went back up the following week, no friends and family present, and bombed. It was terrible. But one of the guys that was there, that was a comedian, saw me the week before and he said, don't give up. I'm going to take you to Ann Arbor to another comedy club in Ann Arbor where University of Michigan is. And he said, we'll go up there this week and you're going to try it again. And he gave me some tips. And 20 years later, I was still doing it. So I quit a few years ago when I started doing radio here in town because it was too hard to travel and stuff. You can't really, you can't have a day job and be a comic because it's a lot of traveling. It's traveling all over the world, really, and definitely the United States.
Did
And it was just
Go
fun.
ahead.
It's fun. It was a fun life.
Did you enjoy it? I guess, well, there's my answer. Because I did comedy. I sort of had a similar situation, but I didn't do it for 20 years. I am writing a book about my life, and I have little vignettes and little chapters. And a friend of mine said, "This is so funny. You should perform it." I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm not an actor." She goes, "Oh, go take a comedy class." So I did. And when you're done with taking your class, you have to perform it, right? And in fact,
Mhm.
this is at Flappers. I know you know where that is, right
Yeah,
over in
yeah. Uh-huh.
Burbank. And the same thing, I actually got a call from an agent. He's like, "Well, how would you like to do this?" I'm like, "Wait, what?" So I did it a few more times.
Mm-hmm.
I was very nervous on stage. Like, I can do this. It's
Mm-hmm.
very easy to me because, but I was so scared all the time of forgetting what I was going to do. It was nerve wracking to me. So I don't know how you got through all that, but clearly you're like a natural to do that, right?
Well,
You
it
took.
becomes it becomes natural when you're talking. I mean, when you're doing your act, because your act is your same act pretty much from
That's
week to
true.
week. And you might add something here or there or take something out, but overall it's the same thing. So you are used to saying what you're saying.
Hmm.
Uh my my biggest thing was order, like what order am I doing things in? I would try to memorize that before I'd go on stage, but sometimes somebody from the audience can throw something into the situation, which makes your order change. Somebody might say something, or you might ask somebody a question. But I was never scared to be on stage. I'm
Wow.
way more afraid to speak up in a meeting with 10 people than I am to perform in front of hundreds. So
Yeah.
it's not, I don't know what it is. I just would zone out. I would be in a completely different zone. Uh, I wouldn't even be present in the room. I would only be present where I was and with the audience, like touching on them as an audience, as one, like one unit. But beyond that, I loved it. It was fun.
Hmm. You said you were working in radio. We're actually going to get to that. We're going to talk about your rock and roll husband, pretty well known guy. We're going to talk a little bit about you working in the music business. But right now, let's talk about your latest book because you've gone through some grief in the past so many years, as I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Your first book, 14 Days, A Mother, a Daughter, a 2 Week Goodbye, is an outstanding book. So for anyone who hasn't picked it up yet, look for it. It's fantastic. And
Thank
you
you.
wrote, it's beautiful. And you wrote this next book, I Wonder, a guided grief journal.
Yeah.
Tell me what that is. I'm also want to sort of read one of the quotes, but why don't you tell our audience first, what is this book about and how is it different than the first one?
Well, 14 Days, the first book, was a memoir about my mom's final 2 weeks of life. And it was, you know, a memoir, and it was all about me and my situation, although it was relatable to a lot of people, because I think the subject matter and people dying, obviously, everybody has somebody in their life who dies, or many people in their life that dies that they're going to be going
Right.
through that with. So I think it was relatable to people, but I wanted to do a second book that was purely for you, the audience, like the people. So I had a lot of people that, when my memoir came out, that would send me their stories and share their grief with me. And I thought this would be a really good thing, like an adjunct to the first book. So where my first book was my story, this becomes your story. In fact, even the dedication I have it, this book is dedicated to blank, who would be the person that you're writing
Blank, right.
about. So it's basically you writing your own story about the person you lost. And there's all kinds of prompts in there to, you know, sort of it's the same exercises I basically did to write my book. You know, bringing back memories. How did you feel? How do you feel now? You know, exercises to get through your pain and your grief and that sort of thing. So I designed it to help people get through grief, but then to also honor the person who they lost.
Hmm. Um, and again, your mom died just before mine, and mine was a shock. I didn't get those 2 weeks because she fell,
Mhm. Oh,
and
geez.
it was awful. And I remember getting the call that morning from my dad, hysterical, and it was a shock to me. And I thought, you know, you try and reason with it, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, I had all these years with her. Well, you know, I should be grateful. But the fact of the matter is, the grief consumed me. And
Yeah.
people need to know. That's why I'm glad you wrote these books. People need to know they're not alone. You know, I almost
Yeah.
felt like I couldn't grieve that much because, like, she lived, you know, a lot of her life, right? And she died in
Hmm.
her upper 80s. But I don't know, to me, it was, I still had more time with her. And
Hmm.
I'm just saying, young or old, hopefully old, it hits us all in different ways.
Hmm.
And these books resonate with so many people, and you could get something out of it. Can I just read one of the quotes? And it's
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
the first ones when you open this book. I love this quote. I wonder if my first breath was as soul stirring to my mother as her last breath was to me. I mean, let's think about that for a moment. Boy, that just sets the stage of this book. How thoughtful and how deep our pain is, right? Tell me about that quote, if you don't mind. And why did you start the book with that?
Well, that quote actually came from my first book, and that's what this whole book was based on.
Ah,
The publisher really liked that quote because it sort of took on a life of its own and it went viral.
yeah, yeah.
It's everywhere. If you look up the quote, it's on every grief website. It's on all these grief. Some woman was making necklaces on Etsy using like little lockets using that quote, and I found it everywhere. So the that's what we called the book I Wonder, and then there's a lot of other quotes in the book that follow the I Wonder path. But I that was
It was a it was a great start to the book, though. Is what I'm
yeah,
saying. It's like
it was
that quote.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
go
the
ahead.
end of my first book and it was the beginning of the second book.
Exactly.
It ended the first book because it was actually something I wrote down that night because it really was, you know, when I'd never been with anybody when they died. This was my first time being with somebody as they took their last breath.
Okay.
And of course, it's your mother. And so it's very, you know, it's a serious one, right? When one of your parents goes. And I just, it hit me. I thought, wow, she was there when I was born. So the first time I breathed, she was there. And here I am with her, full circle moment, going through her life until the last breath she took. And to me, it was just really a poignant moment that I I hope other people, when they are sitting with somebody when they die, especially a parent, to think about that. I mean, of course it's sad and there's grieving and, you're awfully upset when somebody dies, but it's also a very spiritual time and a really spiritual
Mhm.
moment. Like I took such great like woo woo out of that time. Like it hit me in many different ways, and not so much just as grief, but like, wow, this is life and this is death and this is what death is, and we're all going to go through it. Nobody gets out of here alive. So I think if you look at it that way and just look at the beauty of somebody's life and then the beauty of death, there is beauty in death. And that's what I tried to do. I mean, with that
Mhm.
quote and with my mom.
I know your dad just passed away.
Yeah.
In fact, we were going to have you on last month, and I remember because you and I are friends, and I saw your post that he passed away, and I thought, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
how sad, because my dad passed away, and I was in the room with him when he passed, and
Hmm.
I had never been in a room before when someone passed, and I'm still grieving over my mom, right? And here I am
Yeah.
watching dad, slowly breathe. And then I remember that last breath. He went like
Hmm.
this. He went, and
Yeah.
he never exhaled. And
Yeah.
I looked at, I think a nurse or someone was in the room because he was at St. John's. They took beautiful care of him. I said, was that it? Like I was in such shock. I didn't know
Yeah.
what to expect. I wanted to say,
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
back, come back, come back.
Yeah.
Like it's a hard thing. Again, it's just very difficult. And I
It
remember
is.
feeling that, right? So you're grieving again because dad
Yeah.
just passed, right?
Yeah. My dad just passed away. And I mean, he was ill. It sort of came on quickly. I mean, my dad was 99, and that's what you say about people, people will say, oh, well, he was 99. He lived a good life. It doesn't matter. Like, my dad was really active up until, I mean, even on his 99th birthday. I look at pictures of him in April. He died June 14th. His birthday was April 22nd. Um,
Mm.
I look at pictures of him from his 99th birthday. First of all, you'd never know that my dad was 99 if you looked at him. He looked great. And I certainly didn't expect him to die 2 months later. If you would have asked me when he was at that stage at his birthday, is he going to die? I would be, no, he'll live to be 100. Look at him. He looks great. And then just stuff just started happening, and
Yeah.
there he went. So yeah, so I'm not going to say it was a shock, but I had seen him a week before and I was going to be coming back to visit him in 2 more weeks.
Right.
And he died 6 days after I left. And
Mm.
so I certainly wasn't expecting that. Um,
Yeah.
and not that quickly, maybe a month or so, because I know he was starting to fail, but I just didn't expect it to happen that quickly. So, and I was not there when he died. So that really bummed me out too, because I wished I could have been in the room with him like I was with my mom.
Yeah. Did you feel anything at that moment, perhaps?
No, I was
Or
sleeping. I
no?
was fast asleep. My brother called
Ah.
us all in the middle of the night. My brother was with him, so that's good. They were like thick as thieves, my brother and my dad. They were twinsies. And so my brother was sleeping with him at the hospital. I mean, my dad didn't want to be in the hospital when he died. He wanted to be in his apartment, and we were supposed to get hospice, but it's a whole nother story. But I'm most disappointed that he had to die in the hospital because it's not what he wanted. He really
Yeah.
wanted to be in his apartment. But I'm just hoping at that moment that he really wasn't aware of where he was, and that he could just be in his own soul, and that would be a better, death for him. So that's all. I wanted his wishes to be honored. And I got to talk to him the day before he died. He listened. I know he heard me because he could still make noise, but he couldn't talk. And so I just told him, it's time, go, feel free, go. I'm so sorry I'm not there. I felt bad because I was there for my mom, and I really wished I could have been there for my dad. But we had a good
And
last visit. So
and that's something I know that you're still feeling, because grief, is different for everyone, but at least
yeah.
for me, it lasted quite a while. In this book, I mean, again, I want to just read another one. The first day without you was, and then you offer some suggestions, and you
Mhm.
say, write in your own thing. Um, where does it hurt? I just want to go back for a minute. The first day without you was, I know for me, the worst was not
Yeah.
being able to call I called her
That's
no
the
matter
hardest.
what
Yeah.
right? No matter what
Mhm.
time I woke up, it was like there. Then I would pretend I was still calling her. And even with my dad, because then he came to live with me because he simply couldn't live without her. So he came to live with me.
Uh,
Um, but for so many people, because I really want to make it easier just so people know they're not alone. This is a must. People must pick up this book. Everyone becomes a memory of somebody sometime. I love this one. Punch this page, right? When you're really feeling
yeah.
awful, punch the page. How did you get the idea to put all this in here, Lisa? Seriously.
Well, it was kind of exercises that I wrote for myself. One, while I was writing my first book,
Yeah.
and two, I journal a lot. So
Yeah.
I I journal and I write myself exercises to journal. So I'll make myself prompts, you know. So
Ah.
a lot of these were things that I just wrote for myself to do, and they resonated with me. So I thought I would put them in there. But a lot of them I also wrote just because I know that that people, I know what people go through, just like I said, because
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of people who are going through death and grief, and we talk a lot about it on this other podcast that I'm in, that I guess we'll talk about later. But uh death is a big subject of this other podcast. So I know what people go through, so I tried to write exercises that would help them go through those things that I know that they're experiencing.
Hmm. Let's talk about that podcast. There's two in particular. A girl on the go, and then let's first talk about Tuesday People, that podcast that you do with Mitch Album. Let's talk about that a little bit. What's that about? What do you guys talk about on the podcast? Where can people find it? All that.
Well, for people, I'm certain most people are familiar with Mitch Album. Mitch is the
Oh
author
yeah.
of the book Tuesdays with Maury. It's one of, I think it's the biggest selling memoir of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, it was a book about his professor Maury Schwartz and Mitch's relationship with Maury. A student's last lesson with his professor is what the book was, and it's a beautiful book. It's been made into plays and an Emmy award-winning TV show produced by Oprah. It's in every language imaginable, and it's just something that is it's worldwide, right? So
Yeah.
Mitch wanted to do a podcast. He was approached by somebody to do a podcast about the book and using Maury's teachings as our weekly topics.
That's
So
right.
a lot of them follow. A lot of them follow the teachings of Maury. A lot of them follow the. Sometimes we'll just make up topics. We'll make up things that are not necessarily in the book, but that would resonate with Maury. That this week we talked about graduations, and Mitch brought up a quote that we do a lot of live quotes from Maury, not live. We do a lot of quotes from Maury from when Mitch was interviewing Maury. So he has all of those on tape. So we utilize those quotes, audio clips from Maury in the podcast. So Maury speaks in our episodes every week. And he is the one who had Mitch speak at Mitch's Brandeis University, graduation ceremony. So Mitch brought that up because, long story short, people should listen to it. It's a really good episode.
It's Go
Mitch
ahead.
runs an orphanage in Haiti. It's one of his many charities that he runs. And the first child to graduate from high school, they had their first graduation ceremony at the orphanage for a child who's been there since he was a little baby. And so Mitch has seen him grow up for the past, 20 years, something like that, 15 years. Since the hurricane tsunami, what was in Haiti, when that's when Mitch took over the orphanage. So I
Right.
think it was in
Right.
2010, or no, my brain is not good. I'm horrible with dates. So
No, but I clearly it was such an enormous event.
yeah,
Everybody knows what you're talking about. But go
yeah.
ahead.
So anyway, the earthquake. It was an earthquake that turned into like a tsunami, and everything was terrible. So that is what Mitch took over this orphanage since then and has been there and very active in these children's lives. They have 50 some children right now at the orphanage, and they stay there their whole life. They're taught school. They have all kinds of things, music lessons and all kinds of things. And then when they graduate high school, Mitch has scholarships for college for all of them in the United States. And when they finish college, they're just to come back to Haiti to help the country, at least for a couple of years, I think, to help the
Yeah.
country to do something with what they've learned. And it's a really beautiful model that he bases it on. Anyway, so we talk about everything on there, but much of it, because Tuesdays with Maury was about Maury's final days. Often we touch upon death. So it's a great podcast. We talk about a lot of life lessons, everything from jealousy to pain to people falling out of your life that may have been friends, and then they, friend breakups, and you lose people in your life, not through death, but just through life circumstances, which are
Absolutely.
also painful losses. When somebody decides they don't want to be in your life anymore, it's a very real thing for many people. So we talk about a lot of things. We have good guests on too. One of my favorites, Scott Hamilton, has been on in the past. I love him. He's good friends with Mitch and just such a positive guy.
He really is, right? And that's a
Yeah.
great episode. Like, do you number your episodes? What number is that? People have got to look that one up.
Yeah,
Just YouTube
I
it.
don't know
Yeah.
which number it is. We're at 91 right now, so I'm not sure what.
That's a good one.
You can look at it, but if you just look through all of our podcasts, they're wherever podcasts. It's only audio, so we don't have video. But yeah, Scott, he's done a couple with us since we've started, and they're really, really good.
You're a well-researched person. You watch everything from TMZ and read everything to the Wall Street Journal, right? Do you enjoy research? And in fact, do you do a lot of research for the show, or do you just sort of get on there and talk with him?
Well, Mitch leads the charge on that show.
Right.
I'm the producer, and he doesn't require much of me. I edit it, I edit the podcast, and I'm on as a co-host.
Right.
So I'm there basically just to bounce things off of Mitch or ask him questions every so often. But he really leads the charge for most of the shows. He comes in with an idea and he just runs with it and talks. So no, but in the sense, I've worked in jobs where I've had to do a lot of research. Radio production is a lot. Talk radio, as you know, it requires a lot of production, especially with topical talk, where you have news stories and stuff that are breaking all day, every day. So I think from comedy, comedy is very topical. So I think from both of those, I was trained to just read a lot and to watch a lot of TV and to just learn a lot about news. And I still do it even when I don't need to. I pretty much know everything that's going on all the time. But my parents were like that too. It's weird. Even my dad,
Really?
up until his last week of life, my dad would know everything. He would know the temperature in Los Angeles, the temperature in San Francisco, where my sister lives. He knows when there's wildfires before I do. Like, he was always up on the news. He loved watching. So maybe I was just taught it at a young age, and it became part of my life. But
yeah, I mean, he was an engaged man, clearly, and you're right. It's just you sort of you took a page from his book without a doubt. You said you worked in radio. You worked in talk radio here, KFI in Los Angeles, right?
yeah, I was a producer at KFI. I was on air and a producer on K Talk. I was on air at KLSX when it was a talk station. It was FM talk in the late 90s. And that's when I started there. And then I bounced back and forth with Mitch for many years. Even while I was living here, I would still be on his radio show.
Okay. I have to ask you this because my husband, John Kobylt of the John and Ken show. I mean, at this point, they're legendary right here in LA, and they were just nominated again for the Radio Hall of Fame. I got to ask, what was he like to work with?
I love John. I love John and I love Ken. They were both super nice people. They were, yeah. Don't look surprised. I love him. He was really...
Well, no, because people always are like, what's he like to live with? And so I'm always curious also, what was he like to work with? Sorry, I interrupted you, but go ahead.
No, that's okay. He was always kind to me. That's what I base it on. If somebody is kind to me, then that's all I care about. But John always was very nice to me. I can't say that about everybody that I've worked in radio with, but especially talk radio can bring kind of a, contentious bunch to the table. But John and Ken were always nice to me, always kind. And I mean, still, when I've seen you and John, after radio, he's always nice to me. So, and he's so
he always
smart. And I mean, they have a great show. They're so good together. And I mean, there's no denying they are the top of the tops at what they do.
Yeah. There's no doubt. I'm going to make sure that I play that for him later, and he'll go, see, she likes me. How did you meet your husband? Let's talk about Ted for a minute.
Well,
Can we a little bit?
speaking of talk radio, I was working at KLSX, and Howard Stern was on our station. And Howard Stern, when he was doing his Los Angeles premiere for his movie Private Parts, we hosted the Private Parts release here. So it was at the time, I believe it was called Billboard Live on Sunset Boulevard. It's changed names so many times. Then it was the Key Club and something else. But I think at the time that we did the show, it was called, it was Billboard Live. And my husband was playing there with Slash from Guns N' Roses. They had a band called Slash's Blues Ball. And my husband was in Guns N' Roses. His name is Teddy Andriatis. He goes by Teddy Zigzag is what Axl Rose used to call him. And then that sort of stuck and that became Teddy's name. So for any Guns N' Roses fans out there, that's who Teddy is. But they were performing at the show, but I was late. It's a long story, but nobody told me I was supposed to be interviewing or like introducing the band. I didn't know I was supposed to be there at a given time. I just thought we could wander in. And I got scolded for being late, but my being late is probably the only reason I'm married to Teddy right now, because my partner at the time, Jim Daniels, introduced the band in my absence. And afterwards came up to me and said, the band wanted to meet you because they listened to our show all the time. And he said they were bummed that you weren't up there. They wanted to see what you look like and who you were. And so he said, when they're done, come downstairs and whatever, we'll meet them. So I was talking to Cato Kalin. That's how my whole love story begins. Cato was also on our station at the time. And I was talking to Cato Kalin downstairs, and JD came and got me and brought me over to where the band was. And we talked. We had them on our show the next day. Teddy just had an album come out, so we would play his show on our album all the time. I mean, his album on our show all the time. And then Teddy and I were talking separately. And then he said, I'm telling you the whole story because it's a funny story. He said, why don't I come bring you breakfast this weekend? And I was like, that's a weird thing. Like, nobody's ever said that to me before. You know, it wasn't even a date, really. It was like, how about I bring you breakfast? And I thought, wasn't that nice? That's sort of a sweet thing, right? And I mean, because it was a morning thing, right? It was like, I'll come visit you during the morning or day or whatever, early afternoon, and I'll bring you breakfast. I was like, okay. So that was maybe on a Tuesday. He was on the show. Wednesday, Thursday comes, I hear nothing. Friday, I hear nothing. Saturday, I hear nothing. Sunday, I hear nothing. Monday, we come in to do the show, and I am pissed. And I'm like, how come guys say they're going to do something or call you, and then they never call you? Why would somebody do that? I thought he was so nice and la, la, la. So we get on air, and JD makes that our first topic, right? So he said, well, you know, for any of you who were wondering about Lisa and Teddy's date, he stood her up and he never called. And so our screener, all of a sudden, our screener is pounding on the window, like on the screening window. And she's like, he's on the phone. He's on the phone. She's pointing at the phone. So our first guest that day was Teddy. And he was coming back from Santa Barbara, where he'd spent his weekend. I don't know with who, but he just totally forgot. And now that I know Teddy, I know that that's Teddy. He forgets everything. He doesn't remember anything. And so he said, I want to make it up to you. And I said, I don't know. That's kind of a crappy thing to forget. I deserve better. And JD
Good
said,
girl.
Yeah, JD said, let's throw it out to the audience and let the audience be the judge of your next date. So we did a contest on air, and the yeses won by like a landslide. So they said, give them another chance. So we went out that week, and here we are. We've been together 24 years. So we've been married 20. Yeah. So that was a fun time.
That's incredible. And it's a good thing. What do you want the audience to say? You know, everybody loves a good love story. You know, they weren't going to say, forget it. Of course they wanted you to get together with him. But I thought you were going to say, because I didn't know that story, that he would give you breakfast, but he wanted to take you out the night before. In other words, you know.
No.
That's what I was
really
thinking.
He really meant, I'm just going to come over on Saturday morning and bring you breakfast. And I thought, well, that's an
Wow.
interesting thing. Not one person ever in my life has ever done that. So let's see what that means. Um, you know,
Now, might I say he's a doll, right? Because let's get to your other podcast, A Girl on the Go. And you've got all kinds of things that are going to be going on with A Girl on the Go.
yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he sort of build you a studio for A Girl on the Go? Please,
Yeah.
because I said that stuck with me. Okay, because I went to my own husband and said, "Look what he did for
Yeah,
her
we built
podcast
it. Well,
studio."
well, now it's in
But
my closet, but at the time he built it in our camper for me. He put together a whole, I mean, because he's really good with, you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
electronic stuff because that's what he does with music all the time.
Yeah.
So he built me a studio in our camper that we used to have in our backyard. It was a pop-up camper though. So we basically just kept it popped up all the time. And that's where I went, that's where I was recording my podcast from. And it was super cute in there. And if people came to join us, we just sat at this little dining room table. It was like a little, the little camper dining room
Cute.
table.
So
And
cute.
I decorated it up inside and it was really cute. Yeah. And it was pretty good sound as long as the neighbor wasn't mowing his grass because the the walls are very thin in a camper. So you would hear birds and stuff chirping sometimes. But for the most part, it was nice and isolated in there and it was a good sound. But we sold the camper. So now I do everything out of here. And
Ah,
that podcast has been on hold for a while because, but I'm going to ramp it up. I have an idea for a different format, which we can talk about in a second. But because I've been so busy with the Tuesday People podcast and my day job, that I haven't really had a chance to do my own thing right now because I'm everything on it. I'm the editor. I upload it. I write all the copy for it. It's a lot of work. A lot of work goes into these shows, people.
oh my
Uh,
God, please. It's like you got to make the calls and like, hello, do you want to come on my show? Oh,
yeah,
it's a tremendous. I have a friend of mine who wants to do a podcast. I'm like, you don't understand the commitment. It's
no,
every week. Like you don't just flippantly do one. It's a commitment because
yeah.
otherwise nobody's really going to find it. Go ahead. Sorry, I
Well, it
interrupted you
is a
again,
commitment,
but
and
go
it's
ahead.
not just that. You have to have other skills, or else you have to hire somebody to do those things for you.
Right,
So
right.
either be planning on spending money to hire somebody, or or you just better be pretty skilled at editing and stuff because you need an editing program. I mean, at least I edit a lot with our Tuesday
Mm.
People podcast. I take out
But
every and all these noises, and we integrate music into it and sound effects and all kinds of stuff. So, uh, you know, uh, thank God for all my radio production skills because those all came in handy with the podcast. But it's not easy, people, and it's not easy to get a big audience. And I mean, because it's such a there's so many podcasts out now, so you have to be really ready to hustle and work, 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 work.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, I believe me, I get it. I mean, in fact, this podcast is sponsored by Faherty brand clothing and
mhm.
HarperCollins. I had to say that because it's true. Like if you grow it to a certain point, then you get sponsors, and then
Yeah,
finally you get some money. But people don't realize you do have to grow it to a certain point,
yeah.
which is great. But you were saying that you have a different idea for A Girl on the Go. You want to like tell me about it, and maybe my audience can like
Well,
chime in on social media and give them an opinion or what?
yeah, I've had the company A Girl on the Go. By the way, the website is agirlonthego.com. Just make sure you put the A girl in there. So it's agirlonthego.com.
Right.
And it's a website and media company for teens and a publishing company.
Hmm.
I currently have 4 books slated for the next 2 years.
I love it.
My fingers are crossed that there's a company that I'm hoping to work with who I love, love, love. And I don't want to say their name and I don't want to jinx anything right now, but I should be able to find out about that within a week or two. Um, but if I can work with them, it will be my dream come true.
Oh
And I can
wow.
I can get these books out on a level that's beyond what I can do on my own. I was going to just
Oh,
take the whole thing on myself, but it's hard, just like a podcast. Imagine with books, there's a lot that goes into it. Do you know that 4,500 books are released every day?
no.
4,500 books a day. So think about that. It's a market that is so saturated. So anyway, this is a thing, much like
Wow.
the guided grief journal that I did. The first book that we're coming out with is called A Girl on the Go Guided Journal, and it's a guided journal for teen girls. Tween girls, it would also resonate with them as well, but it's mostly written for teens. But I know younger girls always want to have what older girls have, so If you have tween girls, I think they'd be interested in it too. And on our website, I encourage people to listen and to sign up. I have a subscriber, like a VIP subscriber thing, because we send out free things like free gifts. When you sign up, you get a planner, like a free 2021 a goals planner. The second book we're doing is called A Girl on the Go, Go, Go Goals. And it's a
Oh, I like
motivational,
that.
yeah, it's a motivational book and a planning book for teens, using inspiration from women in business who are, who are at the top of their game in business, um, to give advice to teen girls on how to plan your days and how to do things during your days to get anything done, whether it's your schoolwork all the way up to, if you have big dreams and goals, a project that you want to work on, a charity that you want to work for or something. And we encourage that too. I have a whole sort of a creed for girls on the go. What we are, we're humble, we're curious, we're all those good things. And I want to take the focus off of meism, like the me. And I always, one of the things I have in my next book is turn your camera outward. Like I want to teach young girls.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's not about selfies. There's a big world out there, and there's so much to see and so much to do and so much to show. And you don't need to show opulence on things like TikTok. It doesn't always have to be who's got the most money. You don't have to filter your face. It's be you and be the best you that you can be, and be proud of who you are and where you come from. Not everybody, these kids, they rent these mansions to do their Instagrams and their TikToks from. So they'll rent, 6, 7, 10 of them in a mansion to make it look like they live in these places. You will never be in this world anything. It might last while you're a little TikTok influencer now, but you will never amount to anything without being genuine. And I think you agree with that, Deborah. But
I do. I do.
Have to be you, because eventually, the jig is up later down the line somewhere. Somebody's going to discover that you are not you. You can only be you. And I really want to teach that to young girls, because we just live in this horrible world right now at times, I think, where it's just all about me and my bikini and look at me and look at me. I mean, there's certainly have pride in yourself. I'm not saying that, but turn your camera outward. Show me your friends. Show me where you live. Let's go on a hike. There's just things that are, to me, more important that we're really, really losing.
And you are speaking absolutely to exactly how I feel all the time. We'll go on vacation quite a bit. We love nature trips, no matter where they are. Mm-hmm. And I always have the camera pointed that way. Mm-hmm. People already know what I look like. They don't need to see me. I hardly even post photos of me with my friends, because I'm like, I don't know why. Like, why don't
I don't love taking pictures of myself. I mean, I here's the deal. On my social media, occasionally I'll have one, but it's for a reason, either because I'm talking,
me too,
and I'm saying something, or it's because, oh my God, look how tired I am, and like my eyes are slits or something, and I want to show something. But it's never like I mean, you can look at my social media, but I'm never the one like, oh. I can't even make sexy face. I don't even know how to make sexy face.
What is this thing like with all these selfies with like the tongue hanging out? It's like this.
I know.
God, I swear to God, the other day, like 2 days ago, I was at the beach, and there were these very, very young girls taking selfies, super, super suggestive. And I'm like, oh my God, I actually couldn't believe it, because I thought, I don't want to pass judgment on people, right? Maybe they're making a lot of money on it. Who knows? But I thought, gosh, take a picture of the ocean, for God's sakes. There's dolphins over there.
I know.
But somewhere along the line, the dolphins aren't as interesting as the cute little orange bikini. It was cute, I get it. But you know what I'm saying? So a girl after my own heart. I get
mean, it's
that.
just, and again, I'm not saying that you can't ever take those photos. That's not my point.
No.
I don't always take those photos, right? And the tongue hanging out and all that stuff. Oh my gosh. If I took a picture of me, like trying to be sexy with my tongue out, my husband would be like, what are you doing? What is that? Like, it's so.
Here, let's do one. Lisa, let's do one. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh my God.
I look like I'm about ready to throw up. I don't look like I'm being sexy.
Couple things about you that people may not know. You're super duper organized, which makes sense because as you were talking to me about this, the series of books that you want to do with a girl on the go,
Mhm.
making lists that, to be organized. I mean, this latest book, right? It's got,
Mhm.
ways that you can write things. You're a real organized lady, right? You say you're a
Oh yeah,
Virgo,
I'm a
and that's one of the,
Virgo.
yeah, yeah.
I am fairly organized. Although if you look around my if you looked in my drawers and looked at my piles of paper and my mail that my husband goes insane with because I'm horrible at opening mail because I have to shred things, part of the organization. Some things have to be shred. I like to separate them for the, the what can be recycled and what needs to go in the garbage because it's personal or whatever, like I'm constant. It's just such a production that there's some things I hate to do, but when I do them, they are very organized. I love
Mm.
file folders. I don't care. I know that nobody uses paper anymore, but I'm a paper freak, which is why I use paper journals and I publish paper journals. I think there's nothing like writing your feelings out. Typing them is okay, but there's something about writing things that really touches your soul, I feel. So I'm an old fashioned paper person. So
I'm going to give you a whole list of things and you can just shout out the answers if you want, or you can
mhm.
elaborate, whatever you want. You're a news junkie. What do you like to watch?
Uh, well, without getting too political, I'm going to say my very favorite news show, and this is not a political news show, is CBS Sunday Morning. I don't know if you watch
Oh,
that.
are you
I
kidding? The best stuff. Hello, I want to be hired by them. Are you listening?
I have
Um,
a
Best,
it's my favorite show. We make a whole thing out of it on Sunday mornings. We have to both
best.
be up. We can't have anything else to do. We either get our breakfast and eat it while we're watching, or we eat breakfast first, then we sit down. All phones must be put down. I love that show. Again, it's sort of the model that I want to do with A Girl on the Go. It's real life stories, and it's you're getting news, and sometimes I mean they touch on topical news stories, but
Of course.
it's never with the political sides. It's always just, you know, um,
It's a human side to life.
it's the
It's the
human
human side
side
to life.
of
Yeah.
those stories. So even if they touch on something that's in the news that's topical, they're going
Yeah.
to find a twist on it that's something very personal. And
Well,
even if they have a politician on, they're going to talk about some story that's like going to tug your heart. Never do I not cry at least 3 times on Sunday mornings watching that show.
oh
So,
wow.
so
Okay.
that's my favorite show, and I love talk radio. Still, I listen to John and Ken, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on with you. I listen to that when I'm in my car. I love podcasts. I get a lot of news from podcasts. I loved the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, though. I That's
Yeah.
pretty much how I got my nightly news. I mean, I like Trevor Noah as well, but there was something about Jon Stewart in me, like that really resonated with me personally. I actually tried out for the hosting job on that show, and I found the script a while back.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I was auditioned for the host on that show when it first came out,
Wow.
but
That's something.
yeah, imagine.
Mm.
Imagine had that happened, even if they would have made me a correspondent. Ah, but I loved I still watch the Daily Show, but I was really really fond of Jon Stewart.
John.
Uh,
Yeah. What is your favorite music? I've got a little list here, but why don't you tell me? I know that you love Alice Cooper, right?
yeah, I love. Let me start with I love jazz. I'm a big jazz fan,
Ella.
and I love
You
all
like Ella.
kinds. I like yeah, and I like Ella Fitzgerald. I like old jazz, but then there's a lot of really cool new jazz that's out right now. There's cool people to watch. Kamasi Washington. Oh my goodness, he's amazing.
Mm.
Some amazing just artists out there. And I love, but at my heart, I think because I'm a Detroit girl, I'm a rock and roll girl. That's where I good Detroit rock never eludes me. I love Alice Cooper, born in Detroiter. In fact, he was born at a hospital right in my neighborhood. Um,
Ah,
I love hard rock. That's what I clean my house to. But I also like things like Diana Ross. I'm a Motown girl. I'm a Motown girl, so I have
right.
to like Motown music. I love old music. I always say on my deathbed, please put on Sirius Radio's 70s at set on 7, because I wear that station out. I love 70s music.
So does John. So does John, my
Really?
husband. It's like I'll go into his car and it's blasting. It was, the last thing that he had on there. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I really
he's
like it.
like crazy.
But I like things like I love rap. Again, I'm bringing in a Detroiter, but I love Eminem. I'm a big
Yeah.
he's you were talking in a previous interview, you were talking to Don McLean and you were talking about him being a poet and a poetry. I look at the words that Eminem writes. He is a poet. How people
Yes,
stream
he
and
is.
how rappers in general, rap is an art, man. It's how you can stream so many words together. And I mean, not only, and when you see people do freestyle and they just go with it, it's amazing to me, the rhymes of the words and the thing and the cadence and the rhythm. It's such a beautiful art form. So I like all kinds of music, but at
Well,
heart, I would say, I like jazz and rock would be my two.
but back to rap rather. Oh my goodness, for a second. I mean, look how long it's been around. It's really
Yeah,
lasted. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's not going to last." It's still
it's
here.
it's the
You're
most,
absolutely right.
yeah, it's the most money making music form right now.
By
So,
the way, my interview with Don McLean that you just talked about, he was on just before you, and I was saying you got great billing today, Lisa, with Don McLean. He literally sang a song for me. He doesn't usually do that, and
I saw, I watched it. It
I'm
was
like a
so
little bit
great.
in, like he had to go because he had other, I'm like, wait
You
a minute,
sang
and
Vincent.
I'm still like in shock over that, right? It's like,
Yeah,
I mean, the man is a massive legend,
yeah, that was amazing.
Let's talk a little bit, if we can, about your day job. You work in the music industry. What could you tell me about that?
I work in the music industry, and just to lightly touch on it, I work for the Grammy Awards, and I run the jazz and comedy genres for the Grammys. So that's that's it. So I get to work with music by day and the written word by night.
I have to tell you, it's one of my favorite shows to go to. I remember a few years back, I'm sure you were there. Um, Carrie Underwood was performing,
Mhm.
and the
You
way
and
it looks
John
at,
have attended the shows, by the way. I've
yeah, we've
Yeah, yeah.
attended many times. In fact, yes, many times my kids have come with us. I mean, I love that show. But I
Hmm.
remember that time on TV at home. It looks really, just the way it's put together is beautiful.
Hmm.
But to watch it live is quite an experience. It's a beautiful, beautiful show.
Yeah, it's
One
much
of my
different in
favorites.
person than live. It's
It,
different.
it it really is. So that's
Hmm.
really exciting. I know that you've been with them for about 10 years. So
Yeah, I
that's
just
pretty exciting.
celebrated my 10-year anniversary, and it's really cool because you're really, I mean, I live in the music world anyway because I'm married to a musician who's a pretty prominent musician. He plays with lots of
Yeah.
people, and I mean, in addition to what we were saying, Guns N' Roses, he's played with Alice Cooper, Carole King, and when he started playing with Alice Cooper, oh my goodness, I was beside myself because that was my first, like, well, aside from Donny
Wow.
Osmond and David Cassidy, my first, very young adult, music fan was, I was a fan of Alice Cooper. So when he got that gig, I could barely contain myself. And he's played with Carole King. He now plays with a guy named Walter Trout. He's played with Billy Bob Thornton. Um, and he's got a good job. So
In fact, when I went to one of the book signings for your first book, 14 Days, Billy Bob was there.
mhm.
I remember that. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that.
he
So
came
I know
back.
he's become a friend to you as well.
Yeah, friend,
Um,
family friend,
I
right? We're
Yeah.
family. Family is not what you call it.
Well,
Friends who are family.
when you start working together, you start becoming very friendly with people. That's sort of the beauty of this business. You run into
Mhm.
some pretty difficult people, but you also run into some incredibly beautiful
Yeah,
people.
yeah, for sure.
What would you like to tell some of the young people, like young girls in particular, who are listening about your career? Let's face it, it's been very eclectic. You've been in radio,
Hmm.
you've been in comedy, you've been in copywriter. It all sort of works together, though, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, very perceptive to be able to write these books and put into written word about grief.
Hmm.
What would you like people to know about you, about your work, and what's coming up?
Well, or my advice, what did you want the advice for the young girls too? Or
Yeah,
uh
put it all in there. Yeah.
okay. So let me start with the advice part first. I would just say follow your dreams and do what you want to do, but it doesn't mean that, like, let's say you're even nearing college right now and you want to pick your major. Your major does not have to be what you do for the rest of your life, and most likely it won't be. I have changed. Again, I was a journalism major, and sure, I still use those skills in my life now, but I'm not writing for a newspaper, which is what I was going to do, or I was going to be a broadcast person, which I ended up doing in some parts of my life. But it changes, all of that changes with time and with your growth. Sometimes you'll be in the middle of a job and you'll get to do a little bit of some other job, and you're like, wow, I really love doing that. And you may change careers completely. So whatever it is now is not what it has to be tomorrow or 10 years from now. Keep changing, keep learning, keep growing. And I would say that's kind of what I'm about. That's what I've done my whole life and career. I don't have a very straight path. If I had to go find a job now, knock on wood, hope I don't have to do that. But if anybody read my resume, they'd be like, what? Like all of my jobs have been so different.
Well, all they have to do is go on your LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
somehow you managed to sort of mold it that this is who you are now because of all that stuff that you've done, which is very important for people
Well,
to
it
know.
all comes together.
It
Every
does.
business, every job, like day job I've ever had, I use all those skills to do everything I'm doing now, especially the stuff with the Girl on the Go. I mean, I build my own websites. I edit my own shows. So I mean, and I have graphic design experience because in advertising, you have to do that. I was a copywriter, but still you work hand in hand with art directors, right? And
Mm.
so I think that I everything I've picked up along the way, and this goes for anybody out there, everything you pick up along the way is important. You're going to use it somehow in your life at some point, you know?
Mm.
So don't think that just because you've done something and you no longer do it, that it's a waste of time. Oh, no, no, no,
Hmm.
no. You're going to pick it up later and use it in some other capacity. I promise you. So, a multi-potentialite, that's what they call us. People who have their hands on a lot of things at one time. I
Yeah.
can't live any other way. Like it's the only way I know how to be.
I can't either. And I think that's sort of the mind of someone who's an artist and a writer because you sort of need that experience to take it
Yeah.
all in. Final question before I let you go, because I know that you have some meetings you got to go to. Something nobody would know about you, like maybe not even Teddy.
Oh, geez, that's a tough one.
Uh-oh.
Something nobody. Uh, um, I, I mean, I used to say this in my comedy act, but I was bald until I was 5 years old, because I used to pull my hair out in my sleep. I had
Oh.
trichotillomania. Is the Some people it can be like picking out your eyelashes or whatever. But when I was a little kid, I used to roll my hair up in my fingers and pull my hair out. And so basically, my
Oh.
kindergarten picture, I have this little, like it looks like a little boy brush cut. I was I and the doctor, my mom, I remember at the time, I mean, people didn't really know much about that stuff then, right? They didn't
No.
put their finger on what it was. And it wasn't until I was later that I identified what it was, that it was a real
Wow.
thing. But my mom's
Wow.
doctor said, my mom said, why is she still bald? Why is she bald? And why does she keep pulling her hair out? Why is she bald? And my doctor at the time, my pediatrician, he was totally bald. And he said, if I had the answer to that, I'd have a head of hair. But that wasn't exact. That's, you know, but,
I
but
like that.
yeah, but that wasn't exactly it. I had an issue and apparently I was anxious as a little kid. Um, you know, uh, and
Like
I
like like
outgrew it. Thank God.
like yeah, I was going to say though, like many of us were and like many of us are. Lisa Goich, thank you so much for being here. People, please check out her podcast with Mitch Album.
Tuesday
Check
people. Yeah.
Tuesday people. Check out A Girl on the Go once that comes back, and the upcoming books. Check
Yeah.
out this. Go ahead.
I would say, but go to the website in the meantime. And if you have teenagers or young girls, please sign them up to subscribe because we give away all kinds of giveaways and discounts and fun things. So,
Yeah, it's really cool. And if you're going to be speaking about it, to young people too, let us know. We'll put it on our social media pages too, because we like to support everybody who's on the show.
oh, cool.
And please pick this up. I wonder, a guided grief journal. It's helped me, and I think it'll help a lot of
And
you too.
I hope it helps people.
Yeah, I think so. So thanks, Lisa Goich, very, very
Thank
much for
you,
being here. I
Deborah.
really enjoyed our time.
I could talk to you for
Very,
6 hours. If I had 6 hours, I would talk to you.
yeah, it's just that you're very inspiring to me, especially
Oh,
with the recent grief that you've been through and how you're now using that to help other people. I just think that's very important. That's the number one
thank you.
reason why I wanted you on. And then, of course, to talk about the interesting life that you lead and all your other work. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank you.
And all of you, you can find my podcast, Deborah Kobylt Live. I also do another one, Little Italy of Los Angeles, but we're doing that next week.
I
But
love
Deborah
that
Kobylt,
too.
isn't that fun?
I love
Like
your
all
whole
things,
Italian thing. I love it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm full-blooded Italian, so I got to get it out there. And I'm
Hmm.
taking Italian lessons too. But anyway, you can find our podcasts on all video and audio platforms. Like you just name it. Go to iHeart, go to Apple, go to Facebook, YouTube, you'll
Hmm.
find us. So thank you for tuning in. And a few parting words from our sponsors, Faherty and also Harper Collins Books. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye bye. I love our latest collaboration,
Faherty. I'm so obsessed with their products that over the weekend I purchased everything from hats, shorts, sundresses, and even a few shirts for my husband at their Malibu store close to where I live. At Faherty, summer is in their DNA, and everything from their blankets to shorts and tees are beautifully woven organic materials, and that's everything to me. Faherty is about family, and I was so excited to learn that the family who actually started Faherty were from Spring Lake, New Jersey, where I spent so many summers as a kid. And they care about what I care about: simple, top quality clothes for every day, for travel, casual evenings, just the way we live in our family. So please shop FahertyBrand.com and make sure to put in the code DEB20 for your special discount. And happy summer! I just read the most amazing book, and I'd love to recommend it to all of my viewers and listeners. It's called The Lost and Found Bookshop by New York Times bestseller Susan Wiggs, and it's available now on paperback at harpercollins.com. It is perfect as a summer read by the pool, the beach, the lake, or if you're traveling by plane. So here's the premise. Natalie Harper inherits a financially strapped bookshop in San Francisco after her mother dies. She also becomes the caretaker to her grandfather, and it's books that become a welcome retreat for her grief and tough times. People magazine calls the book a feel-good family saga. I call it incredible. In fact, I felt for Natalie, and I wanted to know what else she found inside the pages of those books. The Lost and Found Bookshop is about life's ups and downs and how we get through them. Pick it up at harpercollins.com, and remember, tell them Deborah Kobylt sent you. That's the Lost and Found Bookshop.
Are you there?